Welcome back to another edition of the Better Than I Found It podcast. I'm Mike McGraw, Baylor men's golf coach. Today's guest needs little in the way of introduction. Since he burst on the scene in the summer of 2019, he's been one of the world's best golfers and has captured numerous titles, including the PGA Championship. He is none other than Collin Morikawa. Now, Collin is not only an amazing player and a fierce competitor, he's also a really terrific guy. I think you'll hear that in this interview. He gives a lot of really good insight on what has benefited him as a player, including his parents' impact on his career. If you weren't already a Collin Morikawa fan, I firmly believe you soon will be. Enjoy the listening. Collin Morikawa, welcome to the Better Than I Found It podcast. I truly appreciate you taking, a little bit of your week off here to spend an hour with me. I really do appreciate it.
Coach, thanks for having me on. I know we've been able to create a kind of a friendship, especially after I've graduated. I've always looked up to you as one of the best coaches that I have seen through my college career. And I'm excited. I'm excited to talk to you today, and we'll see what happens.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. Very nice of you to say. And I have obviously a great amount of respect for you and what you've been able to accomplish. And I was thinking back, the last time I actually saw you in person was the 2019 NCAA, which was your last college golf tournament and was literally the last time we played at NCAA championship over in Arkansas. I remember that day very well, knowing you were going to be a professional shortly thereafter. And but anyway, so life has changed. COVID sure changed a lot for us, hasn't it?
It has. And the biggest thing I think I've taken away over the past couple of years is that there's so much more to golf. And golf rules your life in college. That's all you want to do. You want to win championships. You want to win tournaments every week. But, everything that has happened through COVID, it opened my eyes, and it really just kind of made me look at the world in a different way. Didn't necessarily change who I am and how I respect, and go about my business, but it made me just open up and look at the world in a different view. And it's been cool. It's crazy to think that really the last NCAA was 2 years ago, and I was playing in it. It's cool to see the regionals kind of were released earlier today, and that's really cool. But I miss it. I miss college golf. It was so much fun. And I spent my 4 years. I made sure I graduated, and I used every minute I could, but I wish I could go back once in a while and play with the team a little more. Tiger Woods came out several years back and said he thinks had he had one more year of college, it really would have benefited him. Just he wouldn't have had his degree by then, but still it would have been another year to mature and grow. And I know you probably used college in that way to help you grow up and get ready for a life in pro golf. But so before we get to your college experience, which I want to talk about because I've really good friends and always respected your college coach, Steve Desimone. Was just amazing. His record there at Cal was amazing. But I'm always interested in what great players, guys who are playing for a living, guys who are doing what they dreamed about their whole lives, what their early influences were. So a lot of times it's their dad, might be a club pro, whatever. Who was the biggest influence on you early on and got you started in the game? It was definitely my parents. As a little kid, pretty much before I could remember, I'd follow them to the golf course. I'd follow them to the range, and you just get that knack, and you see what your parents are doing, and that's what you want to do as a little kid. And this was really early on. So this was, when I was 1, 2, 3, 4, just starting to walk. By the time I was 5, I started taking these little junior camps. And I think that's when my parents said, okay, we're done playing golf. Whether they were good at it or not, they stopped. They brought me to all my lessons. They did all that. And that's what's kind of different than I feel like a lot of golfers these days, a lot of juniors coming up, is that, it's a great family sport. I think it's brought a lot out, especially through COVID, people finding their love for golf. But it wasn't that way. I found my love for golf through myself, and I fell in love with it. And I think that's the best way anyone could, was that there was no pressure by my parents to make sure I go play golf or play tournaments or go have to practice right after school. It was more about, was I having fun? And, you think golf in LA where I grew up, there's a lot of it, but they're not there isn't necessarily the best junior golfers in the country all in Los Angeles. You know, a lot are in Florida, a lot are in San Diego. So I grew up playing by myself. And by the time I was 8, I met my coach, who I still have today out on the tour, Rick Sessinghaus. So I've been with him for 16 years, and talk about a relationship, a friendship now that has grown. There's nothing better I could have asked for, because that's really how everything kind of got kickstarted, how I started playing tournaments, how I, kind of just changed who I was as a 5-year-old taking little junior golf lessons into something of, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life.
I applaud your parents for that. My dad was a club professional, and he introduced the game to all 7. I had 6 brothers and sisters. To all 7 of us when we were about 5. It was just like, here's golf. Do you want to have anything to do with it? And I did not want to do it. I didn't want to play. I hated it. I would make excuses. I was sick. Whatever I could to not go to the golf course. And my dad told me one day, he says, Michael, you don't have to worry about it. I'm never going to make you play golf. This is not something you have to do. And that was like, he took the weight of the world off of me right there, because when I did start playing 4.5, 5 years later, it was because I wanted to. So your parents did the right thing. And you mentioned having fun. Don't ever lose that, because you're going to be at a time when you're not playing as well as a pro at some point, and you're going to be miserable and angry and bitter. And you've got to remember, gosh, having fun. That's why I do this.
Yeah. What I've realized. Yeah. Sorry about that. And what I've realized, and you look at so many guys and you see the emotion after they win or they have a great round. We're grateful where we're at, and you can't let that go. But yeah, going back to my parents, I was really fortunate because they let me do whatever I wanted. I played a bunch of other sports, and when I decided, I was about 10, 11, I decided for myself. I didn't decide. My parents didn't come up to me and say, okay, if you want to become a PGA Tour pro, you need to stop. I thought the best chance for me is I can't keep giving up 4 months of my year playing baseball and then playing basketball for another 2. I wasn't tall enough for basketball for sure, but that wasn't going to stop me for trying to win and beat everyone else. But at the end of the day, you got to have fun, and I think you have to be grateful for the positions we're in.
Yeah, that's great. So anyway, your parents get an A+ on that. I know you were a really good junior player, and so you were developing your game, and you were playing a lot of junior tournaments there in Southern California. But who were the biggest rivals you had, like that maybe you're still playing the game today, that you played in junior golf?
One actually comes up into mind. Sam Horsfield went to Florida, my age, and I have seen him since I've been about 8 years old, 9 years old, playing junior events, playing the U.S. Kids World Championships. He's always been up there, and he still is, and he's doing really well on the European Tour right now. That's a name that always sticks out. It's pretty cool to see our journeys, especially all the way back to U.S. Kids, all the way to come full circle here. You see guys like Scotty Scheffler, Doug Ginn, that I've played a lot of junior events, a lot of AJGAs with. And then you see guys like Will Zalatoris, Davis Riley, that I've seen for nearly my entire childhood since I've been a teen. And it's so cool. And everyone asks, who I play with out on tour in these practice rounds. I kind of like to just go on my own, because at this time right now, there are young guys, but the amount of young guys that are on the Korn Ferry right now that I have grown up with, that I know that we can go out and have a dinner, I'm waiting for those guys, because I know it's just going to be that much more fun playing practice rounds, playing Tuesday matches with them, because, I know them. I don't have to get to know them. I've known them for 8+ years now. And that's what I'm kind of looking forward to in the next few years.
Well, you don't have to worry about it. They're on their way. Those guys.
Yes, they are. Absolutely.
They're on their way. And there's no doubt they're headed your way. But, so you won a lot of junior tournaments as a kid. What would you say if you had to say the crowning achievement for a young boy who was trying to build a game? And so something you're most proud of as a kid, like this accomplishment, that's the one that you look back on.
Yeah. You talk about winning a lot of tournaments. I actually didn't win as many as you would have thought. You win your local 1-day 9-hole events as a little kid, but you kind of forget about those. And obviously the pinnacle of junior golf is kind of those AJGAs. and I have never won one. I will never get a chance to win one.
Oh, no.
I have 0 AJGA champion bags in my possession. But what kickstarted it was a 2013 Western Junior, and obviously it was a big invitational. It had a great field. Winning that kind of validated my sense of belief. Even though I felt like I could still compete with these guys, I felt like I belong. Sometimes you just need that extra win, or you need that kind of just top 5 finish to push you. And that win kind of solidified everything. I put together 4 really great rounds in a really good field. Obviously younger guys, but it just kind of jump started everything. It got me into the invitationals, got me into Wyndham Cups. It got me into all these fields. And from there, I just felt like, okay, I was able to check that box off. Let's go win some more. Let's keep winning. It doesn't matter who these guys are. And as a junior, I'm never going to forget when, you're not in high school and you look at guys that are in high school and they have their high school bag. And then you're in high school and you see guys with their college bag, or you see guys with their AJJ bags, and you're like, oh man, I can't wait to be that guy one day. I can't wait to be him. He must be awesome. I think, looking back at that now, and I think what, little kids should realize is that what's on the outside doesn't define who you are, and I think people look at the exterior so much and you take that so much for granted. And I definitely took that for granted when you see someone with a college bag that, oh my God, they're untouchable. That, sometimes you take that too much and you almost scare yourself away from becoming, the person you believe to be. And you never get that extra step, that extra push, because you've already put yourself one step back. So, that I would say that Western Junior, going back to that was definitely my defining moment of how I kind of pushed myself. And from there, the rest is kind of history.
So did that get Coach Desimone at Cal? Was he already recruiting at that time, or did that push him over the edge right there?
I think my first letter I ever got was from Texas A&M. And wow. I looked at it.
Higgins.
Yeah, I looked at it and I was like, California kid in Los Angeles, am I ever going to go to Texas A&M? I looked at it and I was like, wow, this could be cool. This could be weird. This could be very different. It could be cool. So, for me, Des didn't reach out until a little later. Him and Walter Chun were great people, great coaches to have. But I took the recruiting a little differently. I was still, winning the Western Junior early on in my junior career. I was able to get recruited fairly early on. But I felt no rush. I feel like kids these days have a rush and they just want to commit. They just want to get somewhere. They look at a great team and hey, when you have a great team, go for it, right? If you believe in the team, the coach, the atmosphere, go for it. But I didn't feel like I was in any rush. And I was very thankful that coaches didn't put, any timetables on my commitment. But I wanted to find a place that I was comfortable at, that I felt like I could grow as a person, I can grow with the team. Because at the end of the day, sometimes when you take one visit, you might love it that day, but you might not love it the next. And what was crazy, and I can say it now, is that the first visit I took to Cal, I didn't like it. I didn't actually like it. And that's the amazing story, is that the 4 years I spent there, I loved it. I thought it was a perfect amount of time for me to spend in that area. I met a bunch of great people, and we can talk about that later. But with recruiting, you really have to sit down and tell yourself, what do I want? Not what my parents want, not what coaches want. There obviously are better coaches than others. That's what I truly believe, especially with what some juniors need. But you have to look at it and be like, will I grow as a person? Will I become an individual in the 4 years I plan on staying here? Because when you're out in college, you don't have anyone to babysit you. Even though you guys, the coaches, are there to help us as much as we need. When we graduate, we have to figure out life on our own. And that's where you have to spend these 4 years and be comfortable with it. So, looking at that recruiting process, it started early. I took my time. I really did my homework with what I wanted to do, and slowly figured out, Cal is the right place.
I think that honestly, that's about the best advice I've heard a player give to young kids, because everybody is in a hurry. And honestly, the coaches, sadly, are part of that process, because if several kids start committing, then we get to thinking, okay, all the players are going to be gone. And as players are seeing other kids commit, they say, oh, all the opportunity on campuses are going to be gone. So everybody rushes to the starting line. I've got to get the player, and the kids, I've got to get the coach. So it's like what you just said is true. If you're patient, you'll find the right spot. And ironically, the place you loved the most was the place you didn't even like initially. So you gave it time, and it worked out for you. That's great advice. So
absolutely. And I think you guys don't get enough credit because you guys have a talent to recruit people. But for the juniors listening, you don't have to be the number one player in your class. You have to have that it factor. You have to have that work ethic. And I think that's what a lot of coaches look for, is just a good work ethic. Because if you show up, and I've seen it through my 4 years where you think you might be a top player, and then you show up and you don't produce the scores and the All-American awards and whatnot your first season, it gets to you, and it happens, and it happens to all of us. But I think the thing is, you have to keep getting better every single day. You have to find a way to just get better just a little bit, learn from others. That's the biggest thing. I try and learn from as many people as I can. I'm a very observant person by nature, and I just kind of look around, and whether it's from my team or your team or whatever coach, whatever it may be, I'm always trying to pull things in, because that wealth of knowledge just helps you just kind of beat that next person right next to you that you're trying to beat for those few days on the golf course.
Well, that's good. Observing, watching, learning, listening from other people around you. I do it as a coach all the time. I'm 61, but I feel like I've got a 28-year-old assistant coach, Mikkel, and he's one of the most creative thinkers I've ever been around in my life. And so I keep on thinking, if I'm smart, I'll listen to him. And so I do. And so, but let's talk about your career at Cal real quick. You were a 3-time first-team All-American. So there's 10 first-team All-Americans every year, but there's very few that have it 3 years in a row. So that's an amazing accomplishment. You were the Golf Week National Player of the Year 1 year, Big Pac-12 Player of the Year, and you rose to number 1 in the World Amateur Golf ranking at one point. So you obviously rose to the top of both college golf and amateur golf while you were at Cal. So the decision you made to go there certainly didn't stunt your growth or your progress as a player. In fact, it probably enhanced it. So of all the learning experiences that you had during your 4 years there, what do you think was the most valuable learning experience? And it could be from anybody. And, why do you think personally that college golf has great value, if it does for you?
Yeah. Oh, no, it definitely does. I 100% back that. I think one of the best values that I learned that no one really taught me, I kind of had to figure out on my own, was be efficient with your time. And obviously Cal being a great academic school, and me knowing that I wanted to finish my degree, get my business degree, be efficient. And I think when you look at a lot of people, and I don't know, I can't name specific people, but a lot of parents might look at us as PGA Tour players and be like, yeah, we're grinding from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and we're doing nothing else other than golf. That's as false as it gets. And especially, with someone like myself, I'm only going to talk about, what I did, was that I didn't spend hours and hours and hours just grinding on the range, on the practice green, on the putting green, on the golf course. What I did was I was trying to be as efficient with my time as possible. And in college, you have to balance your life. You can balance athletics, you can balance academics, you can balance having friends, hanging out with them. But when you're there, you got to have purpose. You got to have a reason to do it, be efficient with your time. So, if I compare my practice schedules to some of the other guys on our teams, easily could have been half the time throughout my 4 years that I was there compared to theirs. But did I know what I was trying to do? Did I know what I was trying to accomplish? Absolutely. That's one of the biggest things and biggest lessons that I could tell anyone, is be efficient. Be efficient with what you're trying to do, because you will get things done. If you're just out there to be out there with the team, and sometimes it's fun being out there with the team. You have to have fun. Like we talked about earlier, go have fun, go mess around, go do these funky things on the golf course, get creative. But if you only have a few hours of the day, or you only have a small amount of time or weather, whatever it may be, go be efficient with your time. Because if you're not, someone's out there working a lot harder than you, a lot more time. And as a college athlete, you don't have that much time. So go be efficient with what you have, because you have everything at your fingertips. And that's why I think college golf is 100% worth it. No matter where you go, you can, whether it's D1, D2, whatever it might be, the technology, the access to great practice facilities, coaches, mentors, alumni, whatever it may be, you have that at your fingertips. The network I built at Cal was awesome. The people I met, the donors, and I know you guys have great donors, people that we meet, that you think, okay, they might not have an impact on my life. They absolutely will if you're trying to play professional golf, and they're helping you pretty much kickstart your career in college. They don't get enough credit. Coaches don't get enough credit, because we show up as 18, 19-year-old kids thinking, oh man, we've got everything here. We're the best. And, yes, we are a very small sample size in the entire world to make it there. But you're not just trying to do that. A lot of guys obviously have hopes to make it to the PGA Tour. So how do you use that wisely? And everything is there. So use the time wisely. Why did I stay 4 years? Obviously, one reason was to get my degree. But after my sophomore and especially after my junior year, I felt like I was ready to turn pro. And the only thing really stopping me it wasn't my golf game. It was just more, was I mentally and physically prepped to go out and live on my own, travel on my own, know what I'm going to do, have my agent, have my clubs, have everything there. And I used that senior year. And not everyone has that availability to do that. But I used that last year to prep how I was going to be out there on the PGA Tour. I knew I was going to get a few starts here and there. I was thankful to get my 7. But how do I use that last senior year, those events that we were traveling on the road, to get my body prepped? How do I schedule enough time to get all that stuff ready? Because I didn't want to be ready a month in after I turned pro. I wanted to be ready that first day I turned pro. And I think some kids kind of, even though we don't have a draft, there's no signing contracts, anything, you might sign some club contracts, but there's no official announcement that we're turning pro other than once we finally tee it up. And you can't be ready when you tee it up on that Thursday. You have to be ready the day you graduate.
I think that's a good lesson in preparation, always preparing for the next step, whatever it is. You're living in the moment, but you're also preparing for the next step. And you were doing that. By the way, having coached against your team and watched you play in tournaments, you were ready quite a bit before you actually graduated. But it's good that you took the time to finish your degree. And that gets back to that day at Arkansas when I saw you for the last time. You turned pro shortly thereafter. What was your event you turned pro at?
So I played sectionals as a pro, but my first pretty much start was that Canadian Open, RBC Canadian Open, a week right after. And what a way to live out dreams, just teeing it up for the first time. I was fortunate enough to get a couple starts on the PGA Tour as an amateur, one on the Corn Ferry Tour, and I had some success there. But what was crazy is that it didn't feel different. And I think at that point, I knew I felt like I belonged. I felt like I was ready, because it didn't feel different. If it still feels a little different and you're kind of afraid, that's not bad. There's nothing bad about that. But I felt like I was ready. And I think that's what kind of kickstarted things to just allow me to go play golf. Because at the end of the day, no matter where you are, it's golf. You have to remember that. It's still 18 holes of golf.
I've got an old saying that I've used with players through the years because they think, okay, I've got to do something really special when I go play the U.S. Open qualifying, or it's the NCAA championship. It's got to be really special. No, good golf travels. So if you take good golf with you, it'll be fine anywhere you go. So, it just does. Good golf travels. So just understand that and know that. So you turned pro and you made, I believe, and I'm not positive of the stat, I'm going to ask you to correct me, 22 cuts in a row, or was it 23?
I think it was 22. I don't know. I think you might see 23 from maybe one of my amateur starts, but I've seen 22. I have seen 23. We'll just go with 22.
Okay, we're going with 22. So it's obvious you knew how to make cuts. I mean, that was not a problem. But I'm going to mention something before we finish that thought about just you yourself. Victor Hovland and Matthew Wolff also turned pro right when you did. And I'm going to say this because I am a golf historian. I love the history of the game. I've read several hundred books about the history of golf. So I do know history of the game. And what the three of you did is unprecedented. And it hasn't happened before. You know, Nicklaus came out at 21 and 22, and he was great. And about 15 years later, Jerry Pate did the same thing and won the U.S. Open as a 22-year-old. And about 15 years later, 20 years later, Tiger Woods came on the scene. But it's once a generation, you know, and Justin Leonard came along in there and did something really nice as a brand new player through exemptions. But the point is, three of you got out there and did virtually the same thing. You just played your way right into pro golf like it was easy. Tell me it wasn't that easy, please.
No, it definitely was not easy. You know, even though it might have looked easy at the time, and golf was, it was in a good spot. It was in a great spot in my game as well. It's never easy. And I'm going to share some advice that I got in Canada that I think every college player, especially ones that are about to turn pro, should listen to. I was able to sit down at dinner with Justin Thomas, where we had the same agent, and he gave me some of the best advice I've heard. And it doesn't have to do anything with my golf game. Is that if you're able to come out here on the PGA Tour, and whether you get one start, you Monday qualifier, whatever it is, you've got the talent, you've got the game to come out here and compete. Obviously, the opportunities that we get, that we can play every single week, we have that ability to prove ourselves. But what he said was that everyone's got a different path. And if you just stick with that path, whatever you're on, you're going to make it to the PGA Tour. And I believed him. And he was right, because everyone does have a different path. You know, I could be on the PGA Tour tomorrow. You can be on the PGA Tour in 15 years. But if you truly love the game and you want to keep pursuing it and you have that availability to do so, keep doing it, keep pushing, keep getting better, because you will get there at a certain time. And I think what we did, the three of us, put in a lot of college players' heads that I can do it. And that's good. I'm glad. And I want to put that positive impact that they can believe that they can do it when they see someone like Will Zalatoris play really well recently. You see Doug Ginn, Maverick, Cameron Champ, you know, Doc Redman, all these young guys, Sam Burns, who just won, all these young guys that, you know, I still know a bunch of kids in college, see us play really well, and knowing that they've beaten us before, it gives them that confidence. But if you don't immediately see that success in the next 3 months, I know a bunch of kids are going to be turning pro in the next month, right after nationals. That does not mean you failed, like, at all. There's no failure. And I think that's how I don't look at it as anything. I don't look at missed cuts as failures. I look at them as opportunities. And that's what I looked at, as that summer as an opportunity for me to make my name, to make something out of it, for me to learn. When I miss cuts, I actually learn more from missed cuts than I do from a T25, because there's something to really dig into your golf game, your mental game, whatever it is. But just keep working at it. You know, we play a sport where we're going to lose way more than we're going to win. So learn from those opportunities. Look at that as a positive impact in your game and in your mindset. But, you know, it was a pretty fun summer, and it's crazy to think back that we're almost hitting 2 years now, from 2019.
And we still haven't played that other NCAA championship.
Yeah, I just lost my Pac-12 individual championship that I was holding on to for so long. I know Matt's holding on to his.
You thought you were going to hold that on there forever. Listen, I am an old school historian, old school guy, but I'm so thrilled that this generation is removing barriers. I mean, honestly, from JT, how many times has Justin won? 13 times?
I think 13. Did he hit 4? He might have hit 14 at the Players.
Yeah, it's crazy. And then what you three guys did, it's awesome to think, you know, and there is a learning curve with everybody and everything and every profession, but it's great when somebody can shorten that learning curve by a better belief system, better training, better preparation, as you've done, better observation. You've watched and learned, and because you're good at that, it makes you a better player. But anyway, so you made 22 cuts in a row. You went in, you won at Barracuda for the first time. Briefly describe that, and then I want to talk about a really big day at Harding Park.
Well, you know, Barracuda, what a thrill. At that point, I had already secured my card, so I knew I was going to make it to the PGA Tour the next fall, pretty much. But I wanted to win. because I wanted to play playoffs. I already had a decent season. I kind of knew where I might have stood in the FedEx Cup rankings. And at that moment on that Sunday, all I was trying to do is win. And I think that's what everyone should do. You should be focused on winning. There's a process and there's a lot of steps to get there, but the ultimate goal is to win. And coming in that Sunday, I actually caught myself on, I think it was the 13th or the 14th hole, caught myself getting quick. I was trying to get to that finish line, trying to get myself to post a number, and that's a different format, the Stableford format. But I had to slow myself down. I have a great relationship with my caddy. I'd be, it would be bad if I didn't mention his name, JJ Jakovac. I'm lucky to have him. But birding those last 3 holes and closing it out, it meant the world. I had my family there, I had my girlfriend, everyone was there. So to close it out and to just know that, okay, we are on the right path, we're doing the right things. And at that moment, it was a sense of relief, but it was also a sense of just passion, because I wanted it again. I wanted to be in that moment. I wanted to go win. And I just wanted to keep that run going. And I was able to keep it going for a little bit. Obviously missed a cut at Travelers later on. But other than that, it was just, I lived for that pressure. I lived for those nerves. And finally to get that first win out of the way was something really special.
Well, you must have liked winning a lot, because you've been doing it fairly often. So you beat Justin Thomas in a playoff for the Workday. Is that correct? Was that the next victory?
Yeah, we had 2 pretty large putts on that first playoff hole. He made 50-something footer. I made a 23-footer roughly. And I just didn't want to lose a playoff. My playoff record through college, I'd never won one. I think I was in 2 playoffs in college, and I had never won one. I lost a playoff in Colonial when we restarted after COVID. And I just put everything into it. I didn't want to lose. And a putt like that Justin made, that's a putt you normally win. That's a putt you normally win tournaments with.
Did you hear his celebration or not? I can't remember.
I'm so thankful that there were no crowds. I do miss them, and they're so good to be back, and it's so good to see people because they bring life. But at that moment, I'm very happy that they weren't there, because I could go out and focus on my putt, and it definitely benefited in my favor for sure.
That's great. Well, so you win that event, and then later in the summer, the PGA is at Harding Park, and just an amazing, amazing old golf course. And we could go through the whole week or not, but I'd like for you just to describe your feelings during the final round, and certainly what I consider one of the best shots in recent major championship history, the drive on 16 for the Eagle.
Yeah, I'll actually talk about going into the week. There's just a sense of ease. And I think, when you guys, for example, or most college teams host their own college event, right? So you're playing at a home course, whether you practice there every day, probably not, but you play at a course that you're going to have a lot of experience at. And there's that sense of ease. There's that sense of just belief and knowingness that you can play well. And, we had played Harding Park maybe a handful of times, and I hadn't played great, but there was a sense of ease of going back to San Francisco, a city I spent the last 4 years at. Just knowing that, okay, I know what my balls are going to do. I know what the flight's going to do at sea level when it's cold, even though it's the summer. And so going into that week felt great. Obviously put myself in a good position, but waking up Sunday, it felt like any other round, but it also felt like this was my tournament to win. And I think a lot of guys in the lead felt that way. And just because I felt it doesn't mean someone's going to be like, oh yeah, this is Collin's tournament to win. But I truly believed it. And my game felt like I was in a good position, but I knew I had to go out and play really well. There's too many guys out there to where, if I shoot a couple under, DJ was not going to let me have that. Made a couple great putts in the front 9 for par, made a couple 30-footers for par, and got away with that, kept the round going. I think I was a couple under through 9, and you make the turn. So when I was on 12, I saw the leaderboard. There were 7 guys, I believe, at 10 under par. And you had to make something happen. You had to have some break go your way. I show up to 14, hit a drive in the right rough, or what it seemed to be the right rough. And that's where I thought I got my break. It bounced out of the rough into the fairway, had 9-iron in my hand, great number, and hit probably one of the worst iron shots I hit all week. I missed the green short right. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, I just had an opportunity given to me. I didn't take advantage of that. And how do you forget about that? And how do you go on to the next shot? So I forgot about those two shots. I went on to my next chip shot, and I looked at my caddy and said, I'm going to make this. This is a chip that looks like it's going to go in. Hit that chip, and I actually thought it was slightly short, but that was the break you needed. That was the extra little momentum and something that was given to you somehow by those golf gods that the ball went in. And from that moment on, I had to do something about it. I wasn't going to lose this. This was in my hands. This was my tournament now. And I just kept putting good shot after good shot, hitting quality shots. And I think after that, I really didn't miss a shot. And obviously we talk about the shot on 16, or the drive on 16. I didn't have to do anything special. It was pretty much tailor-made to what I am and who I am as a golfer, hitting a left to right, nice little cut drive. With the distance it was at, the wind, the weather, didn't do anything special, just hit a normal driving, and thankfully kind of got away with it.
Well, it was a pretty nice eagle. And so obviously, how old were you when you won that championship, that PGA championship?
I was 23.
Yeah, you're 23 because you're 24 now. That's
Yep.
pretty young to win a major. And
It
so
is.
you had dreams your whole life. I want to be a major champion. I want to win this. I want to do that. And I want to be highly ranked and all that. Well, all of a sudden, these things are coming to fruition. They're happening at a young age. So for you, that's obvious. It's a great thing. But did you recalibrate, refocus, change some goals? What did you do at that point? Because a lot of times winning a major, because of all the distractions that are involved, there's a lot going on there. What did you do right after you won that championship?
Coach, you're spot on. And, I didn't think it changed who I was. And, I like, there's a lot of media loves to ask this question, what are your expectations? And from day one, since I've been a pro, I've told the media and I've told people, expectations to me, my definition of expectations are what everyone else outside of who I am put on me. So whether it's the media or the coaches or the players, those are expectations. I set goals, and I set goals for myself to reach whatever, daily, weekly, monthly, long-term. And that's all I care about. I care about these goals. But what happened after the PGA was I never reset my goals. So obviously I set goals at the beginning of the year. I kind of talked to them with my coach, Rick, throughout the year. But after the PGA, I didn't reset them. And it's such a big mountain to climb when you win a major. Like you said, there's opportunities that come from it. There's more media stuff you have to do. But I didn't reset my goals on the golf course about what I wanted to accomplish the rest of the fall. And if you look at my results on what happened, I didn't play great. I wasn't playing my game. I wasn't doing that because obviously you win a major, your standards are going to go up. That doesn't mean the goals have to change, but I never reset my goals. It was, at the beginning of the year, of course, I'm going to put winning a major as one of my goals. But once you kind of check that box off, you think that everything is all right because a major kind of sits at the top of your goal list. I think anyone would want to win a major. But having done so and having realized that I never reset my goals. And I hate myself for doing that, but I'm glad I learned from it. And now looking back, that once I win a tournament, if hopefully win more majors, that next week, that next day after, I can sit down with my coach and be like, okay, what is next? Because for me, I'm a huge goal setter. I love to set my goals. I love to keep pushing the boundaries, but there's no limit. And that's what's kind of cool because as a little kid, I just said I wanted to win majors. I didn't say I wanted to win one major. I didn't say I wanted to win this tournament. I just want to win tournaments. I want to go out and win majors. I want to compete with the best. And, it was definitely a learning experience that fall, just kind of realizing, okay, this is what happened. You kind of take one step back, but let's learn from it and let's keep moving forward.
Yeah, I've noticed that really the greatest threat to your future success is the success you're having right now, because it makes you think everything's fine. I don't need to work. I've got, and that's not the case. So I think everybody needs to be able to recalibrate and figure out, okay, I accomplished that one, but I've got to get something else out there in front of me. And you're obviously a dedicated, motivated, very driven human. So it's good that you learned that lesson. It doesn't surprise me either that you would learn a lesson like that. So I want to ask a question because my assistant coach and I, Mikkel, we've been talking about this. You're currently #1 on the tour in strokes gained approach. And I think that'll probably be a nice little spot for you to hang out most of your career. You're really good with
I would love
iron.
that.
Yeah, you would. I know you would love that. But can you tell my listeners like some keys that you have? I mean, what makes you such a great iron player? Because you really are. You're just an amazing iron player. And you and Rick obviously work on things. What are some of the things you do? And one other question to that, when you get to a tournament and it's not going where you want it, it's not quite right, do you have some resetting drills that you do? Do you have anything you do that kind of gets you back right on track? So what do you and Rick work on to make you a great iron player?
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, Coach. I think how I've gotten to this point is being creative. I spend a lot of time on the golf course, especially growing up. I didn't really hit many balls on the range. I just went out, and I was very fortunate to be at this 10-hole country club, and that's how I grew up playing. I dropped 4 or 5 balls in different spots, hit different shots, worked the ball left to right, worked the ball right to left. But as I grew older and I went to college and my swing kind of developed a little more, my body got stronger. This left to right kind of fade built into my game, and I've stuck with that. I haven't changed, like you said earlier, about when you show up to the PGA Tour, you think you need to do something special. You absolutely don't. And I believe that what I was doing in college, hitting my left to right shot, I can bring that out here on the PGA Tour, and I've seen it. And I've, obviously worked on different shots, but 95% of the shots I'm trying to hit a baby cut. I'm trying to work the ball left to right because that's my strength. And I think everyone's swing, everyone's body is tailored to a certain shot pattern, and you have to understand what kind of shots you have. You have to understand your misses, where you're going to miss. In college, I definitely took out a lot of that left side. I had a little bigger miss to the right, but I knew that's what my miss was. So I could aim at anything, and I knew I was not going to miss it left. So coming out that first kind of summer when I was still playing very similar to how I was playing in college, nothing bothered me on that left side, and sometimes, like you said, when things don't work out and my swing starts swinging a little too far left and I start hitting these 25-yard slices almost, when things go bad, you have to even it out. So what do I do to kind of even it out? Excuse me. I love hitting punch shots. I love kind of keeping my feet together, feet grounded on the ground. Because for me, a lot of college players, our bodies are very flexible. They're loose. We move fast. There's a lot of moving parts. So how do you keep things grounded? How do you go back to the basics? And that's one of the biggest things for me is how do I go back to the basics? And I think we're always working on something. Whoever your swing coach is, you're always trying to fix something. You're always trying to make it better. But I think what Rick has done with me, really since the end of my junior career heading into college, is that not everyone will love my golf swing, and it might not be the perfect golf swing, but it works, and we know what works, and we know why it works. And I think understanding cause and effect is the biggest thing. And when things go wrong in a round or in a tournament, I kind of understand why. And you have to understand why. You can't be guessing. So, working on swing thoughts and swing mechanics is important, and you want your swing to look good, but have a purpose to do it. Why are you moving your hands in this position? Why are you putting this there? What kind of misses is that going to produce? Because sometimes it might make it a straighter shot, but it also might create a two-way miss. And do you really want that? Not necessarily. So for me, just going back to the basics, knowing what my takeaway does, knowing what kind of swing thoughts I've used in the past that have worked, we always go back to that. What's great, and that's something that I'm glad you brought it up. I still use a swing thought, and it doesn't exactly work in the same way it did way back then, but I still use a swing thought from that 2013 Western Junior when things go wrong today. Rick will bring that up. He'll be like, do you remember what you did in that 2013 Western Junior? I'm like, yeah, let's go back to that. Go back to those feels. And those feels are slightly different now, but it's crazy to look back now 8 years ago and still have that same thought I do when, things are a little off today.
Well, the things that I like about what you just said during that little segment was, one, you own those things. I mean, they're inside you and you know how to go back to them. And two, you said, well, don't have the prettiest swing. I think it's a great golf swing, but I also think Jim Furyk has a great golf swing, because Jim Furyk repeats that golf swing over and over and over, and he completely trusts what he's doing, and he knows where the ball is going. So to me, that's a beautiful golf swing, one that produces shots that I can trust under pressure. That's a beautiful golf swing, period. And I once heard Scott Verplank tell me years ago, probably 20 years ago, he's hitting the ball 250. I mean, he didn't hit it very far, but he completely eliminated the left side of the golf course, completely. And so he knew his ball was going to finish in play. And I think that's what you just described is kind of what he was describing. It's like, I'm gonna know what I can do with a golf ball, and I'm gonna do it. And then there's a lot of confidence in there, isn't there?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. Well, so you live in Las Vegas, correct?
I do. Yep.
I know a lot of tour players that live out there. Do you play a lot of matches and grudge matches out there or not?
I do. There's a lot of young players, and I think that's what's really exciting. Being a West Coast guy, I wanted to stay West. I had to get out of California. Paying those lovely taxes wasn't going to be great for my budget. But it came down to kind of Scottsdale or Vegas, and a lot of guys recently in the past kind of year and a half since I've turned pro have moved out here, and it's been a great place. It feels like home now, and I think that's when you get kind of comfortable in a place like this, it just makes it a little easier on your life, knowing that okay, you can come home, relax, decompress, and go back out on tour.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I know that there have been little enclaves and little pockets, Jupiter, Florida, Edmond, Oklahoma was for years in the 80s, where a lot of tour players will gather. Scottsdale is one of them. And you have a game if you want a game, or you can go practice by yourself if you want that as well. So that's great. What's your schedule look like over the next several months? I know there's some majors in there, but what have you got?
Yeah, I mean, coming up next, after this 3-week break, it's amazing that I can actually schedule a 3-week break into the season. But I'll have the PGA. I'm going to head out to Colonial, where I've actually been for quite a few times now the past few years, going to the Ben Hogan Award. So that'll be really cool to go play that again. And then the week after, I'll have Memorial, and so that'll be a 3-week stretch of really good golf, great golf courses as well. I think after that, I've got the U.S. Open, and then from there, I think I might be heading out over to the Scottish Open. I'll be playing the Scottish Open and the British Open, and I haven't played much links golf, so really look forward to that.
Do you still have the same enthusiasm you had when you turned pro 2 years ago?
I do. And I think there's a different sense of fun what I have now. When I was out there that first few months as a pro, everyone looked at you and really didn't blink an eye, knowing, you're that 22-year-old kid coming out. Okay, here's this next wave of sponsor exemptions. And now sometimes, guys will look at me knowing, okay, this guy can actually come out here and play and possibly win this tournament. But I have so much fun. My girlfriend's able to travel with me a bunch. We just got a dog. We love food. We just got a golden doodle, a multi-gen golden doodle. So he's 12 pounds now. He's 4.5 months. Should only get up to about 20, but best thing in the world for us.
That's great. That's fantastic.
Yeah. But we love traveling, and I love traveling so much. I love going to these cities. And I think that's why, it's not just golf that I'm coming out here and doing. There's so much more for me to explore, and it's definitely very fun.
All right, I'm going to ask what we're going to do. I've got 2 more questions for you, and then I'm going to do a little speed round, which is just a few questions. I think you've already answered one of those questions I have, but you're currently ranked number 6 in the world. You obviously are achieving a lot of different things you probably had thought. What would you say right now is the main goal you've got out here, kind of medium range, just in the next year or a couple of years for you personally, golf-wise?
Yeah, I think golf-wise is to improve my putting. That's obviously been something that even through college that I worked on, I knew as a junior golfer I had to improve my short game. And, I've been able to talk to Mark O'Meara a little bit. He moved out to Vegas, so he's out here quite a bit. And, he's not giving me the secret on how to become a great putter. He's not telling me what to do. All he's telling me is speed. And, I remember Des, my freshman year, when I was in a practice round, them throwing the cups down, and he looked at me and I'd hit a putt and it would be really bad in a practice round. He'd be like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Oh, I'm just testing out the speed." And he's like, "No, you should have the speed down by now. You've already been here." And that's kind of stuck with me because speed's important. So how do I work on my speed? How do I get better? But I think, for me, what I've realized as well, and people were questioning why I went to this saw grip, about a month and a half ago, is because I'm trying to get better. If you're trying to get better, you're going to try new things, and sometimes they don't work out, but sometimes you have to try it, right? You keep doing what you're doing. It's not going to give you this. It's not going to give you better results if you keep doing the same thing. And obviously that's the definition of insanity. But try new things, be creative, be open-minded about what someone has to say, what your coach has to say, because if it doesn't work, put it in the trash, check that box off, knowing that you tried it, and move on. But that's kind of the mid-range goal. I'd say it's a very short-term goal as well. But in the next year or so, I definitely want to move up in the strokes gained category of putting. I think that would help me with where I sit right now.
I think I'd feel sorry for the competition if you become the best putter. If you become as good as you want to be, I would feel sorry for those guys. But
okay. I'm excited.
I understand. Well, I've got one more question for you, and I think you've already given me an answer, so I'm asked for another one. But I was going to ask this question. I ask it of all good players: is what's the best piece of advice you have for junior golfers who want to be where you are today? Now, you've already said be efficient with your time, so that could be can you come up with something, along with that? But and that's a great piece of advice, by the way.
Yeah. I think set goals, and we briefly talked about that, and that's huge for me. I'm not saying you have to go write your goals down. I know a bunch of players and tour pros that write it down. We see like Justin Thomas, I think, wrote it on a plane ticket and he shared it afterwards after the year. You don't have to do that, and I don't write anything down. I just set goals with my coach every year. And like you said, you have to reassess those goals. So I think if you set, at the beginning of the year, or right now, we're already in May, go set goals for tomorrow, go set goals for a couple weeks, go set goals for 2 to 3 months, and then go set goals for half the year, and then at the end of the year. And if you check any of those off, or if you're remotely close to even achieving those, go put 2 more. Don't just, get complacent with putting 1. Go try and push yourself to get 2 more, and go set 2 more long-term goals if you have to, if you don't have enough time to get to that next goal. Because I think a lot of junior golfers, they think they know what they're working on, but time goes by really quickly. And it's crazy to think that I'm already been on the tour. And I like to count this as my 3rd season already, even though I really technically haven't had a full tour season yet because of COVID, because of the, me coming out as a pro. Time goes by quickly, and those junior golfers, you're going to blink, you're going to be in high school, you're going to be in college. And by the time you're going to be working on the same exact thing you thought you were working on when you were 12. So, just set goals and try and check off those goals. And if it takes you a little longer, it takes you longer. I'm still working on things that I was definitely working on when I was 10, like putting. That's golf. You're always going to be working on something. But
like you mentioned earlier, everybody's path is a little different as well. So those goals are attained at different times. Well, first of all, before we do the speed round, I want to say thanks for coming on today. It's fantastic for you to do that on your time off here. And you've given a lot of really, really good insight that I think is going to be valuable for my listeners. Okay, so let's go with just the general quick questions. You can take as long as you want, but make them quick if you could. Favorite professional athlete, period.
Kobe Bryant.
Good. Favorite pro sports team?
It's got to be a split between the Lakers and the Dodgers.
Lakers and Dodgers. Nice. Favorite course you've played on tour in the last 2 years? Favorite course?
I'm going to not count the majors. I think those are always too good, and people love those. And how could you not? I'd say Riviera. I was able to play the USAM there, but it's actually grown on me a lot more than I thought it would.
Yeah, that is an amazing place. I love that place.
Yes.
It's right there in your childhood home, basically, right? Not too far?
Yes, it is, but I never played it. I never played it as a kid.
Course you'd most like to play that'd be on a bucket list that you haven't played that you really want to play?
I'd love to play more of those British Open courses out there. I've played 0 of them. And, you know, I can name St. Andrews, but I'd want to play a good handful out there because I just haven't played links golf. And I think it's just a great test of golf for sure.
Well, being a golf historian, I know you've got the game to play links golf. So you need to get in there and start playing those golf courses. Chipotle or Chick-fil-A?
Oh my God. I'm going to put a tie. I've gone weeks where I've traveled by myself and I've had Chipotle nearly every day.
Okay.
But I mean, you can't go wrong with Chick-fil-A either. I mean, I've had that every day as well. So
yeah, your generation, I've noticed these college players, if I say either one of those, I'm not a hero, but I certainly haven't offended them.
you're gonna have a great easy team meeting at the end of the night. I promise you that. If you feed them that.
For sure. Okay, Remember the Titans or Shawshank Redemption? Which would you watch if you had one movie to watch? Have you seen either one of them?
I have. I'd watch Remember the Titans.
I love that show. I watched it 2 nights ago. If you weren't a pro golfer, what would you be doing?
I'd try and pursue another sport. I mean, I'd try and play baseball. I'd put everything there. And like, I love sports. It's been my life. You know, when I go home, I try and shoot hoops with a bunch of guys when we're all together. I just love it. So I'd try and become another professional athlete if I could.
I love it. I love it. And final question, best investment under $100 that you've ever made in golf. So you best investment
in golf. To be honest, Coach, I don't know the last thing I bought. That's probably an awful answer. I'll give you a great answer that my caddy loves, that I know a lot of college players have. You know those little brushes that clean your clubs?
Yes.
There are not many caddies out on tour that use them. They think a towel does the job. And I went out to the PGA Tour Superstore nearby a couple falls ago and bought a bunch for my caddy. So we pretty much have a lifetime supply, but all those college kids keep it on your bag because trust me, those cleans clubs.
My guys actually use those. And when I was a kid, you were thought of as a nerd if you had one of those. So
exactly. I see Webb Simpson. He clips it on his belt. I'm not at that point. I actually keep it in my pocket when I'm doing numbers with my wedges now. But yeah, it's a pretty good. I'd say it's a really good investment on $100 right there.
I haven't heard that answer, but I actually love it. So, Collin, thank you so much. I know you're going to get a lot more fans from my podcast. People that, well, they obviously know who you are already. But I love the information you gave today, and best of luck going forward.
Coach, appreciate the time. Good luck in the postseason. Always great talking to you.
Great talking to you. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Thanks.